Okay, so the way I'm going to use, I have blankets. Right, I have my yoga blankets. Doesn't matter, it could be a towel, could be a blanket, but I fold it. Right, so I fold it so it comes into this shape. I just folded it in half and then half again, so it makes this rectangle. And I have two, but you can have one. Doesn't really matter. And if you want to play with it again, because this is actually really helpful, especially for women, this is a good one. So I am going to sit on it, and you can roll it to the height or the width that feels good. Take off my glasses. And then I'm just going to sit on it, straddling it this way. Okay. Right, so it just creates, because of the shape, because it's rounded, there's a little bit of lift up into the sitting bone. And you'll see as we move. And so I'm going to do a little bit of anterior and posterior tilt. I know it's hard to see. I'm just going to initiate the little anterior or arch or cow shape and a little bit of posterior tilt. And a little anterior tilt. So you're just getting a little bit of a roll, right? Pressing the tissue of your kind of pelvic base up against the bone. So as you roll back, you'll feel more the back of the sitting bones and maybe towards tailbone. You also have a sense of tissue or sensitivity or tightness or density. And then rolling along from sitting bone, I'll call it the pubic arch, right? The bony landmark between the sitting bone and the pubic bone. Right, so you can even put your fingers on your frontal hip bone, right? The bony prominence is closest to the skin, front of the pelvis. As you posteriorly tilt, right, moves away from the thigh. And as you anteriorly tilt, moves towards the thigh. And again, just as you breathe, as you settle into this, you might just feel different things, different places. You might feel a density on one side in the back and on the opposite side in the front, or might feel dense on both, in both the front and back on one side. Just a little bit of movement, nice and slow, noticing your breath. Just noticing the inhale and the exhale, allowing the breath to move in and move out. We spoke about this yesterday, like the tide rolling in and the tide rolling out. So as the breath comes in, noticing places where it gets caught or there's a grip around the breath. See if you can almost just let the inhale fill gently and then roll into the exhale. And the exhale, roll into the inhale. And the movement of the body almost come with the breath or from the breath. You can also do this sitting on a chair. And then maybe even start to know just posturally as you anteriorly tilt, the ribs move forward a little bit, maybe the face lifts a little bit. And as you roll back towards the tailbone, the back rounds a little bit, the head comes forward a little bit. And letting that start to get smaller and smaller until you start to feel that movement towards verticality, right? Which doesn't erase the curves of our spine, but allows us to find this pelvis under ribs, ribs under head, ribs over pelvis, head over ribs. Aware of the front of the body and the back of the body, even, right, the mass of the pelvis, the circumference of the pelvis in relationship to the circumference of the ribs and the circumference of the head. Right, little bowls nestled over each other. And let's do a breath with open mouth. Open mouth. We're going to inhale. And exhale, and just starting with that rhythm. And we started this yesterday, but let's play with a little inhale, a sip of the breath in, open mouth. And a sip of the breath in on top of that first sip. And a little sip on top of the second breath. And then a longer exhale. That could be a little more like a running stream. And a little sip. Open mouth, open throat, open in the chest, a little sip again. And a little sip again. And a little release. You can even do a little sound to the breath on the exhale, a little just scraping the breath across the back of the throat. Again, inhale. There's a slight pause before the next inhale. Can you soften that? And the breath may move in and out a little. Inhale a little more. Inhale a little more. And exhaling. And inhale. 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 And exhale. Slow it down just a little bit and see if you can let the inhale then drop. Inhale. And inhale, drop a little more into the belly, into the bowl of the pelvis. Inhale a little more into the base of the pelvis, right into your blanket that's under you. And then exhale. Notice if there's any difference. Inhale, drop the breath in, belly, into the pelvis, the next inhale. Into the blanket, into the base of the pelvis. And exhale. Take 2 more of those in your own timing, right? 3 sips and a longer exhale. Listening to what's happening in the body, listening to what's happening in the breath, trying to smooth out the breath. less by doing, but by intention or receiving. And then relax the breath, letting the breath find a rhythm, right? And your awareness, your breath, and the awareness of your body all in one place. Maybe noticing the belly or the back or shoulders or chest, jaw, mouth, eyes, right? Any little squinting or holding, just letting it start to soften. And that sense of your awareness moving back and in to you. Good. And let's just do one sound. So one hand on heart, one hand on belly. And let's do the sound VU, VU. So after your next exhale, inhale, VU. And I'm just going to shift forward and slide the blanket out. And just coming on to hands and knees for a moment. Good. And same movement in the pelvis. So sitting bones lift and lower, right? A little bit of anterior or cat shape, posterior. So I'm not moving the ribs just yet. I'm just moving the pelvis, and I'm just feeling the movement of the pelvis. Maybe noticing if there's more weight on one knee or one shin or one foot more than the other. You don't need to really fix it. Just notice. Notice if that side that is heavier has different movement than the side that feels lighter. And then go ahead and let your ribs and head move. Right, so as the sitting bones move down, the ribs lift and the head moves down, flexion and extension. And just maybe even notice the difference, pelvis to ribs. Is there a different fluidity or pacing in the pelvis that's different than the ribs and shoulders? Good, maybe two more of these. Good, and when you're ready, coming back to neutral. And something we did on the floor yesterday. So the sacral bone, right, or tailbone at the bottom of the sacrum, quite narrow, the narrow tip, and then the top of the sacrum is wide. So the sacrum bone, I'm just going to call it like a slice of pizza, even though it's nothing like a slice of pizza. But the tailbone, I'm just going to rotate the tailbone or turn the tailbone to the right or towards the right sitting bone, which creates a little bit of a hip hike. on that right side, right hip towards the right shoulder, and then the tailbone coming back to center. So we tried this on the floor yesterday, so maybe just notice, and then turning the tailbone towards the left. Maybe noticing the difference side to side. Does one side have more sensation or more thickness? Center. Let's try one more time. Right. Tailbone turning as if to touch that right sitting bone. Again, if there's any resistance that feels too much or sensation that feels too much, honor that and move very slowly, smallly. Tailbone to the left and center. And one more time to the right, but this time I'm going to let my head, my right ear, also move a little towards the right shoulder as the tailbone moves towards the right sitting bone. Center with the head and with the tailbone, and then tailbone turning towards the left sitting bone and left ear towards the left shoulder. And center and first side. And center and second side. And center. Good. Toes together, knees apart. I'm going to sit back in child's pose. If you need your blanket between your buttocks and your feet, please take it. Right, if you need more, if you even need the blanket behind the backs of the knees, please take it. Good. And if you can stretch the arms forward or wide out to the side like a big Y. Right, letting the breath just feel its way around the body. Notice where the breath feels moves in easily, where it doesn't move in easily. What feels more thick or less thick, more supple or less supple. Good, and then let's walk hands under the shoulders, round up to sit. And I'm just going to shift around and come onto my back. Good. So my knees are bent just for a few moments, just to let the lower back settle, the pelvis get heavy, the feet get heavy, the ribs get heavy, the head get heavy. And then let's extend the legs. Be heavy, heavy leg. I'm going to pick one leg and just roll the toes in, the toes, the knee, the thigh in and out a couple times. Heel heavy, calf heavy, thigh heavy, hip heavy, even as it moves. And let it settle. And other side, same thing, in and out. Good. And then let that leg settle. Let's take the arms out to the side, straight out from the shoulders. Good. And I'm going to take that right arm and just float it up to the ceiling so it's straight up over the right shoulder. Good. And maybe let's actually quiet hand, and I'm just going to turn. Well, no, let's ignore that. I'm just going to reach that right arm up to the ceiling. We'll do that another point. So I'm reaching the arm up to the ceiling so that the shoulder blade comes off the floor, so that the head gets tipped to the left a little bit and the ribs get tipped to the left a little bit. And then I'm going to let that arm come back down. And I want to feel that right shoulder blade sit on the floor. And then again, I'm going to take that right arm, reach it towards the ceiling like I'm reaching for something or somebody, hanging rope. Again, letting the head turn, letting the ribs turn, and then slowly come back. Shoulder blade on the floor. Can you feel how the shoulder blade lays? As the upper shoulder blade and the lower part of the shoulder blade feel evenly weighted? It doesn't have to, just the awareness. Good, and then this time I'm going to reach that right arm up, shoulder blade off the floor, head rolling to the left a little. And I'm going to take that right arm and reach it across towards the left arm. You could touch the shoulder or the upper arm or the elbow. Doesn't really matter. Notice your breath. Notice your effort. Notice resistance. Notice thickness. Bring that right arm back up to the ceiling and out to the side. And let's float that left arm up to the ceiling. Good. Again, I'm going to reach that left arm up. Again, as if reaching for something and letting the head turn, the ribs shift to the right a little. And this can be as small as it needs to be, right? If there's a lot of resistance or confusion in the body, make it smaller. If there's a struggle, make it smaller. Could be almost imperceivable. And then arm down, shoulder blade down. Good. And let's try it again, reaching up. The head might turn, the ribs might turn, even just the tiniest amount. Right? Less about pushing and really about expanding, extending, curious. Let that arm come back down, shoulder blade on the floor. And again, feeling, does this shoulder blade sit differently? Can you remember? Is there a different angle, right? Is the inner border close to the spine different weight than the outer border closer to the side of the body? And a little lift. This time I'm going to let that left arm reach across to the right. The arm can bend if it needs to. Noticing jaw and throat and back and neck. And then reaching that arm up and out to the side. Good. Let's take both arms up and I'm going to bring palms together. Good. And I'm going to keep the palms together. And I'm going to let both arms tip to the left. So one shoulder blade will come closer to the floor, one shoulder blade will come a little further away from the floor. And there might be very little movement. And the head might move with or might not move with the body. Come back to center. And then over to the other side. Again, one shoulder blade will get heavier. Notice how that arm and shoulder blade and upper back respond, or front chest. Other shoulder blade will be further away from the floor. And center. And first side again. So when you soften and you focus on the breath or you focus on the weight, what shifts? and back to center. If you almost let your body soften like honey on a warm day. I know it's winter, but just that sense of the weight, the width, the viscosity of the body. Other side, right? Rather than how far or how much. And coming back to center. And let's take the arms back out to the side again. Good. Let's bend knees. Feet on the floor. Again, I'm going to take the arms up to the ceiling, palms together. And again, I'm going to let the arms tip. And the arms are going to stay straight. If I bend one arm, I can go further, but I want to keep the arms straight. And really just let the ribs, the neck, the head tip as far as they can. And then maybe, so the side that I'm tipping away from, if I'm tipping to the left, put just a little bit of weight in that right foot, just a little bit to tip the pelvis to the same side. So I'm on a little more weight on that same shoulder and hip, and then letting the pelvis roll back. So if you're tipped to the right, you would do the opposite. And then letting the pelvis roll back to center and the ribs and the head roll back to center. And let's take the arms and tip them to the other side. Again, if I'm tipped to one side, I'm going to let the opposite foot give a little press so I can tip the pelvis to that same side as the shoulders. Maybe the ribs tip a little more, maybe the head tips a little bit more, maybe the body just gets softer. And then letting the pelvis and the ribs and the head tip back to center. So one more time, just like this, to the first side. 2 straight arms tipping the opposite foot, right? Helping to tip the pelvis to that same side. So we're tipping onto the shoulder and the pelvis, same side of the head. And then that slow, heavy roll back to center, back of pelvis, back of ribs, back of head. And then let's keep going to the other side. Arms tips, maybe head tips, rib tips, opposite foot presses just to assist the pelvis to tip. And then slowly, slowly rolling the pelvis back onto its back, ribs and head back onto the back. Let's take the arms out to the side. Extend the legs. Notice your breath. Notice your weight. Notice the floor, the touch, the feel of the floor. Good. One more. Let's bend knees. Good. Let's take the arms up to the ceiling, palms together. And I'm going to, again, tip the arms. So let's all tip in the same direction. So I'm going to tip both arms to the left. So my left shoulder blade gets heavy and my right shoulder blade's off the floor. And then this time I'm going to press with my left foot. So I'm going to tip the pelvis away from the ribs. Notice your breath. Notice resistance. It can be quite small. And then slowly roll the pelvis back onto its back and the ribs back onto its back. Good, and I'm going to tip the arms to the right. Good, so right shoulder blade's heavy, left shoulder blade is coming off of the floor or off the floor. Right foot gonna press and tip the pelvis to the left, away from the ribs. And again, can be quite small since this is oppositional. Notice the throat and the jaw, notice resistance, notice softening, notice breath, notice challenge, notice ease, and then rolling onto the back of the pelvis and the back of the rib cage and the back of the head. One more time to the left with the ribs. Left shoulder blade heavy, right shoulder blade light, pressing into that left foot, knees moving to the opposite side. Notice if there's any change, any shift, any softness or ability to move further without much effort. And then rolling back to center. And arms tipping right. Right foot pressing, knees tipping left, pelvis tipping left. What can soften in the shoulders, in the neck, in the throat, in the waist. And then rolling back to center. Let's take the arms out to the side. And extend the legs. Good. And then last thing, let's bend the knees, take the feet a little bit wider. I'm gonna let both knees tip to the right. I'm gonna let the head roll towards the right, left shoulder stays pretty heavy. That left upper arm stays heavy. And then slowly rolling back onto the back of the pelvis. Again, right shoulder heavy, knees tip to the left. You can even put a little bit of weight in that right foot if that feels helpful or interesting. And then slowly roll back onto the back of the pelvis. One more time, each side. Left shoulder heavy, feeling as the shoulder's heavy, how the ribs turn, that opening in the armpit, in the front chest. What can soften in the throat and the neck, in the tongue, in the belly, rolling onto your back and other side. And maybe the head turns towards the knees or away. Feeling it in the inner, right, inner thigh, front thigh, belly, chest of the side that's turning away from the shoulder. And then roll back onto your back. Extend those legs. And then bringing the arms down, hands on belly. Just letting the warmth of your hands or the presence of your hands invite the breath deeper into the body. Good. One more easy breath, letting go of any direction around the breath or pushing or pulling, right? This fine dance of the effort of effortlessness, that allowing, receiving, expanding around the breath. Soft effort, easeful effort. And then after your next exhale, let's inhale for another vu. Inhaling, vu. Little movement with your fingers and toes, hands and feet, arms and legs. Good. When you're ready, come up to sit. You can always stay down. Namaste.